Happy holidays, everybody, and Tony here with a review of Humperdinck's Hänsel and Gretel, which I saw at the Deutsche Oper Berlin. The conductor was Donald Runnicles, the production was done by Andreas Homocki, the sets and costumes were done by Wolfgang Gussmann, the assistant director was Silke Zenze, and the children's chorus master was Christian Lindhorst. And if you've seen my review of Hänsel and Gretel live streamed from the Wiener Staatsoper, you will automatically realize that I really love this opera. It's been a huge part of my childhood ever since I first heard this opera in its entirety when I was a 13-year-old with Anna Moffat and Helen Donath singing the roles of the children, which I will gladly review sometime this week or next week. Now that's out of the way, let's get on to what I thought about the production. I really like the entire production as it manages to function itself like a pop-up book in which at first you might think that these are just standing pictures, but once you put yourself in the mind of a child, no matter how young or old you are, you can turn something that is deemed initially as mundane and ordinary into something that is brilliant and vibrant. The first act basically starts off in a representation of the woods with some green trees and a cabin with the inside being all gray with a slanted door, and we are then treated to Hänsel and Gretel doing their household chores, with Gretel knitting and Hänsel fixing up a broom, and the family initially appears to be wearing all gray to symbolize the not so ideal living conditions that they have been living in until they progress much later into the opera, where they wear a lot more colorful costumes, and I will definitely talk about those when I talk about the costumes. And once we are done with the first act, we are then treated to the witches' ride, and even though we don't see a cavalcade of witches, the atmosphere of the trees closing in is just enough to be a little bit unsettling but really exciting. And the montage with Hänsel and Gretel wandering through the woods with the gingerbread witch just about to snack on them but just hide behind the trees before the children notice is actually quite intimidating, but nonetheless adds a certain amount of tension to add to the overall story. And when the forest opens up, it's sunny again, and as soon as Hänsel picks up the strawberries and devours all of them and Gretel scolds him, the forest then starts to turn into a bluer shade, with the children just running all around, and there's even some shades of green. And then we are treated to a lighter color with the Sandman coming down from the heavens, just pouring some magical sand into the children's eyes. And I thought it was just really lovely. And instead of the usual pantomime of the 14 angels, we are then treated to the pantomime of the Legion of Sandmen, headed by the Sandman himself, who also doubles as the Dew Man. And I thought it was rather interesting. What makes it really fascinating is that these Sandmen also show the children's prophecy, like having really great food and having the family be reunited after everything is said and done, which also moves the story along, as it is definitely the happy ending that the children and the parents will deserve once they conquer the Wicked Witch. Speaking of the Wicked Witch, instead of her usual gingerbread house, we are then treated to a pop-up version of her house with boxes of goodies containing crackers, cakes, and a lot of other festive things for the holidays. And I also love the lighting that's also being used, and the fact that the oven is in the pit makes it quite terrifying but really exciting, and everything just falls together with just how imaginative yet simple all the sets really are, and the costumes are really colorful all throughout. We first see Hänsel, Gretel, Peter, and Gertrude all in gray, with Gretel wearing white Mary Janes and black socks, and Hänsel wearing black shoes and gray socks. And then in the next scene, which was quite a head scratcher, we then see the children wearing completely different clothing, as in red shirts and yellow overalls, and Hänsel wearing red socks and Gretel wearing yellow socks, and the parents wearing the same color of clothing as them. Now, for someone like me who studied film, there's something called continuity, and it made me just wonder, why couldn't they stick to just one costume, or even have Hänsel wear his coat and hat, and even Gretel also wear her coat and shawl and her hat? It just made me scratch my head. But I guess you could say that it was just to transition from Hänsel's, Gretel's, Peter's, and Gertrude's not so ideal living conditions to the living conditions that they're about to get at the end of the opera, which is kind of self-fulfilling. And what's also interesting are the costumes for the Sandman and his Legion of Sandmen and the Gingerbread Witch. They were made to look like clownish figures, to state that they are full of wonder and color, vibrance, yet something that is quite interesting and something that may not be for everyone, because for some people they do tend to be rather frightened of clowns, so I'm sure that manages to tap in certain kids' fears of clowns. So overall, there were definitely a lot of exciting concepts here and there. And even though I scratched my head in terms of what costume changes were sporadic, I still have to give all of the people behind this production loads of credit for making this entire production come alive with such vibrance, color, and life in general, that it manages to bring us into this world of imagination and charm. Now we get to the singers, starting off with our titular children. Irene Roberts was a marvelous Hänsel, which should be no surprise as I saw her a month ago as Urbain from Les Huguenots. What more can I say about this magnificent high lyric mezzo? She was wonderfully rambunctious and rowdy and really mischievous. You can definitely tell that she had a ball with this part. She was really hilarious and really charming in her own special way. She was wonderfully playful, wonderfully cheeky, and just so much fun and lovely in her own special way, which is also backed up with an innocence that children have of the world around them. And I really love her voice. She has a brilliant top and a gorgeous overall voice, which should be no surprise as Miss Roberts also specialized in some soprano roles like Amore from Gluck's Orfeo ed Euridice and Zerlina from Don Giovanni. So the fact that she was able to navigate between her usual mezzo-soprano register to some of the high notes of a lyric soprano is really amazing from someone as versatile, committed, and charming as Miss Irene Roberts. She really gave it her all as Hänsel, and her top notes were fabulous all throughout. Whether she sings her high A's or B flats, they were ringing and piercing all throughout. Heidi Stober was an equally charming Gretel, as opposed to Irene Roberts' more rowdy and rambunctious Hänsel. Heidi Stober is a lot more dainty, girlish, yet equally as mischievous as Hänsel, and their chemistry as brother and sister, who I can easily presume are twins in this particular production, is just so palpable, so believable, and you could definitely feel it in the way they interact with each other on stage and play off of each other. It is just so glorious in its execution, and I was amused from beginning to end. And what more can I expect from Heidi Stober as a singer? She has her signature silvery, light lyric soprano voice, which is so amazing throughout all the registers. And she was able to sing certain phrases so lightly and so quietly that she was just so amazing in this role. She was able to inhabit Gretel's innocent and girlishness, especially in her solo number, Ein Männlein steht im Walde, which she sang with such charm, and she was just lovely. And I especially love her top notes, especially her top D before Hänsel and Gretel discover the gingerbread witch's house. So what more can I say about Irene Roberts and Heidi Stober as the children? They were both charming, awesome, and they had such grand amounts of musical prowess that they were the absolute stars of the evening. Now we get to the grown-ups, starting off with Derek Walton's superb Peter der Besenbinder. And I've seen Mr. Walton in a lot of productions, and he seems to get better and better as the years roll by. He has his signature Heldenbariton voice, which he uses with such pure abandon, and he is ruggedly handsome on stage and just a lot of fun as Peter der Besenbinder. His voice has that signature roundness and richness, and he was just a great actor all throughout. He finds that balance between ruggedly handsome and charmingly funny, and he does those characteristics such justice that I was completely immersed in his portrayal as this wonderful father figure. Michaela Kaune continues to show her great artistry, great musicianship, and her capabilities as a fine singing actress in the role of Gertrude the mother. But if you know me, I always love it when I hear a blazing, bronze-toned, dramatic mezzo voice singing this mother role. Voices like Helga Dernesch and Rosalind Plowright in the later parts of their career, or even the likes of Gisela Schröter, Grace Hoffman, and even Elisabeth Waldenau. Those are the type of voices I really love to hear, and I highly doubt that these mezzos even sang the role of Gertrude, but voices similar to that of, let's say, Ebestignani, Fiorenza Cosotto, or even Josephine Visi. Those are definitely voices I would really love to hear interpret a role like Gertrude. There were times that Madame Kaune seems to help herself up, especially when hitting a lot of the high notes, but she was still a very consummate actress, especially when she gets into what makes Gertrude tick and what makes Gertrude so upset, so flustered, and so stressed that she has to take her anger out on both of her children. You definitely feel sorry for this woman when she's on stage. You feel just how overworked she is. You feel how lonely she is. You feel how sad she is as a person. You feel just how sad she is overall with not only her lot, but also her family's lot. Their living conditions, their overall sense of trying to survive in this cruel world. You feel that pouring out, and you can't help but just go up the stage and give this woman a big fat hug. You really feel so much empathy for her that you would just want to make sure that everything's gonna be okay. So even though there were some reservations about her voice, especially in this particular role, she is still a very consummate singing actress, helped with her superb spinto soprano voice, and she was just so moving in this particular mother role. Thomas Blondella was an absolute riot as the gingerbread witch. But if you know me, I always love a dark, rough, wide-ranging, dramatic mezzo to sing this wonderfully iconic role. Voices that come into my mind are usually the likes of Elena Nicolai, Elisabeth Högen, Margareta Klose, Margareta Arlt-Ober, and of course, the incomparable, indescribable, and extremely unique Christa Ludwig, who I will also get to sometime next week or this week when I review the Hänsel and Gretel CD with Maestro Kurt Eichhorn on the podium. But all tastes aside, Thomas Blondella continues to prove himself to be a consummate singing actor. His superb lyric tenor voice knows no bounds whatsoever, especially in a role that's also sung by character tenors. He manages to give the gingerbread witch a sort of mime from the Ring tetralogy vibe and energy to this role that you are definitely amazed at just how versatile he is as a singing actor. And Mechot Marrero does the roles of the Sandman and the Dewman justice with her light, silvery, and agile lyric soprano voice, though I would have loved her Sandman to be a lot more hushed and quiet, especially in his introduction number, Der kleine Sandmann heiß ich. And I would have loved for that to be slightly quiet and a lot more whispery and mystical, as opposed to the Doomman's number, Der kleine Taumann heiß ich, where she's a lot more exuberant, but she still manages to be a very fine musician and an involving actress. So overall, this was definitely a star-studded cast, with every singer contributing his and her talents to the entire project, making this something that is so worthwhile. And what more can you expect from Maestro Donald Ruddickles as the conductor? He manages to lead the orchestra in a way that is so masterful, so inviting, and extremely exciting all throughout. And the children's chorus was so lovely. So overall, what more can I say about this particular production of Hänsel and Gretel? They were just fabulous. The singers, the orchestra, the chorus, and the people behind this production were fabulous all throughout. And for those of you who have seen this particular production of Hänsel and Gretel, what did you guys think of it? Did you love the entire production? Was there a singer who stood out to you so much? Or did you feel like this production didn't really resonate with you? Please comment below and let me know. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for my review of Mozart's The Magic Flute, live from the Metropolitan Opera House as a radio transmission starring Jessica Pratt as the Queen of the Night. So until then, good night everybody and have a happy holidays.